I'm here to help women reset and rewild, to embrace and prioritize the pauses in order to reclaim their peace and power. I'm Dr. Michelle Paris, director of the Poppy Clinic and founder and CEO of the Wild Collective. As a disruptor, naturopathic doctor, wife, and mama, I've created a global movement and sacred space for women to rise together. Here, you'll break through limitations, romanticize your life, and unlock the magic of your divine feminine power. My life's work is rooted in community, lifting women into their most powerful, authentic selves, while empowering clinicians to elevate their practices with a transformational, community-driven model. I lead a thriving, passion-fueled business and naturopathic practice brimming with abundance, where I can guide women to invigorate their lives through sisterhood and elevate healthcare with a cutting-edge transformational approach. I've witnessed firsthand in my practice how this model sparks consistent health transformation, creates flourishing communities, and brings profitable success. You can have it all, a life filled with abundance, contagious joy, and untethered potential. So pull up a seat. It's time to pour into yourself and tap into your intuition and design a life that's wild, free, and uniquely yours. And I'm going to show you how. This is Wild Medicine.
All right. Welcome back to Wild Medicine. We are back together once again, and we're super pumped about it. And we're bringing forward one of our favorite subject matters because clinically it's something we see every day. You know, combined, we've reviewed over thousands of patients' diet diaries, and we have a lot to say on this topic, and it's what's made us so passionate about the framework that we offer in Shed. So what we want to talk about today is how nobody taught us to eat and how your body is paying the price for that. So through this concept of not understanding, I was thinking about how you and I have both shared on the podcast before, even our education didn't lend well to us having a good enough understanding, one that made me gain weight myself as a clinician for years. I know you did holistic nutrition, and we know what the education is around that in terms of calories not counting. And so we really want to dispel some myths today, and we really want to create abundant clarity because sometimes, it can feel like we are a mystery to ourselves. It can be really disempowering or frustrating thinking you're doing something wrong. And it truly is that nobody taught us how to properly do this. And so it creates understandable confusion. And we're in the business of creating abundant clarity for our patients to the point where they don't need us for this anymore. That is our goal, is that they outgrow the need to check in with us about their macros and what they're eating, because they actually have a solid handle on the foundational pieces of health, so that if and when other things arise, we're there for them, but that on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis, they're managing themselves quite well. So let me start by painting a picture, because this came up for me recently reviewing a diet diary, and I was like, we really need to highlight this, because it's something that is shared with us often is how tired people feel and how variable their energy is, and how, their energy resources don't feel consistent. Like they're drawing from bankrupt some days they have a lot of energy, and there isn't a lot of clarity as to why this is happening. And reviewing a diet diary recently was a very, very powerful reminder of how simple it can be when you understand, and how important it is to actually look at the data. So without judgment, with a level of curiosity, let's just talk through what this might look like for a patient. So for a lot of our patients, especially recently, they've been saying to me, I start again every Monday. And I'm like, oh, that's so interesting that's something we talk about on social. And now all of a sudden I'm hearing it from my patients all the time, right? There's this renewed sense every Monday, like, I'm going to do this right. I'm going to have this framework. I'm going to, put some blood, sweat, and tears into this, although it gets to be a lot simpler than that. And your nutrition is quintessentially good, right? You had your protein shake in the morning, maybe a salad for lunch, and maybe you took in, if you were tracking, if you even knew to look at that, maybe you ate around 1,400 calories on Monday and felt pretty good about your decisions and put yourself to sleep And then Tuesday happens, you go to work and there's a work event and somebody brings in lunch. There's pizza, there's pasta, there's all the things, that really can hijack your day. And you start to negotiate with yourself a little, and maybe you're like, okay, well, I'll eat less at dinner. I'll have this. And maybe without really realizing it, you're taking in about 1,000 calories more, 2,400 calories. Then Wednesday happens and you're like, okay, today we're bringing this back in. I'm going to do what I can. You're very aware of being more in restriction mode. You maybe do intermittent fasting. I had a patient tell me, and I relate, that we get so good at intermittent fasting, we're not hungry in the morning. So maybe you skip breakfast and then you come home at the end of your day, or it's in the middle of the workday and it's like that 3 p.m. crash and you're looking for caffeine or something. And, now you've taken in about 1,200 calories on Wednesday. Then Thursday happens and you are so hungry from the day before or you did intermittent fasting again, you hoovered your dinner. Maybe you guys ordered out, maybe you took calories in excess, and now you're at another 2,800 calories. And maybe you feel really emotional about how the week is going. And now you pull out the chips at 7 p.m. and you Netflix and chill. Maybe there's a glass of wine. And then Friday happens. And, for a lot of people, Friday, Saturday, Sunday are non-trackable days. They're a little more unhinged. There's a little bit more excess. And we justify it because we're going to start again on Monday. So if this sounds familiar to you, you're not alone. This is something that we see all of the time. And unless we're really reviewing the data, it can be very difficult to discern what might be actually going on and why our energy is so inconsistent and why it seems impossible to shed weight.
And we wanted to also share some of the data, because we're nerdy like that, and really share, kind of the state of the world right now, because there's a lot going on when it comes to metabolic health. And we're living in really a metabolic health crisis. So if we look at some of the research, we can look at a study that was actually published in 2025, and it looked at the metabolic syndrome trends from 2000 until 2023 across 196 countries, okay? And what they found was that in 2000, metabolic syndrome affected 15% of women globally. And before we go further, let me actually explain what metabolic syndrome is, just in case you haven't heard that term before. So it's a cluster of conditions. So it has to do with abdominal weight gain, high blood pressure, blood sugar regulation, high cholesterol levels, or low good cholesterol. So it's a cluster of a bunch of different conditions. And if you have 3 or more, then you meet the criteria for metabolic syndrome. So back in 2000, 15% of women globally were struggling with metabolic syndrome. And by 2023, that number went from 15 to 31. So more than doubled. So I think, what Michelle and I really want to communicate too is that this isn't just a health statistic, right? Like, okay, cool. It's what does that actually mean? And what that means is that there are now millions and millions of women that are living feeling extremely exhausted, feeling inflamed. I hear patients say that all the time. I just feel inflamed. My body feels like it's stuck in an inflammatory state, and feeling really just stuck. So what that means with these numbers is that 1.54 billion adults now are living with metabolic syndrome. Okay, that's a really huge number. And if we just think about type 2 diabetes alone, there's 589 million people living with diabetes in 2024. And so that number, as well as the number and the increase in metabolic syndrome, the number of people with type 2 diabetes has grown significantly as well. In 2000, that number was 151 million. Now, 589 million. That is a massive increase in just 2 decades. And there's a lot going on here, right? And I think that, I think it's really easy for people to to kind of look at these numbers and think about what's going on as a society. Is society becoming more gluttonous, or what's in the food, and all of these types of questions. And what we really want to share is that, if we really boil it down, no one taught us about the fundamentals. We were actually never taught how to properly care for our health, how to reduce our risk of diabetes, reduce our risk significantly of metabolic syndrome, metabolic diseases. So let's go through what some of those fundamentals actually look like. And as Michelle was sharing, we see this in diet diaries of patients that we work with. We get to see a lot. We have seen hundreds and hundreds of diet diaries. We can pick up these trends, and it's fascinating, right? And I was sharing with Michelle earlier that I had a patient who we just started tracking her nutrition. Let's track for a week. And then after a week, let's start this plan. Let's hit these targets, follow these macros. I think it was 2 days into her just tracking, she emailed me and she said, wow, I had no idea how much I was actually eating, how many calories I was eating, and how low my protein actually is on a day-to-day basis. And she's like, I'm not doing this for a week. I'm moving to the plan right away. Because when you know better, you do better, right? But again, no one taught us these fundamentals. And so as Michelle was sharing, right, for a lot of people, there's massive variability day to day, right? And so we see this all the time. We see sometimes women are tracking like 1,200 calories. And then the next day they're tracking 2,600. That's a lot. And that's really hard for our body to actually adjust to. It creates this state of unpredictability, lack of safety in the body, and that feels stressful to the body. Our bodies want consistency. Our bodies actually really love routine. They thrive on routine. And when we are extremely inconsistent, that's stressful. That is very, very stressful for the body. The second fundamental that we really wanted to get into is high carbohydrates and low protein. And this is, if we think about the SAD diet, if you've heard that before, it's the standard American diet. And that eating pattern is exactly that. It's really high in carbohydrates. And so that looks like lots of bread, pasta, cereal, snacks. And I actually just had a conversation with a patient who was moving into maintenance about carbs as well. She was like, okay, so what do I do about the carbs? How do I bring them in, and what should that look like? And we talked about how for a lot of us, when we're building a plate before shed, carbs are the main event, right? It's like you put the rice on, you put the pasta on, and the protein's like the garnish, right? It's like the sauce. And we talked about how we have to flip that. I said, build your meals around the protein. The protein is the main event, and then the carbs are secondary to that. I really want to make sure here that we're not villainizing carbs. It's really important to have carbs in your diet, especially if you're more on the active side, really important for recovery with exercise. And carbs have a lot of great functions, but it's that ratio, the proportion is way off, way off. And so what we find clinically and in the research is that when we can especially start the day with protein, it is transformative for blood sugar regulation, for your energy, your mood for the rest of the day. And when you think about like a typical breakfast, like what is that? Like cereal, right? Or it's like toast. That's a typical breakfast. But if we flip that, if we start the day with protein, we see really good results from that. And having protein distributed evenly throughout the day. And that's what we talk to our patients about all the time, is plan for about 30 grams of protein at each meal. And we educate our patients too on what that actually looks like, right? That's confusing for a lot of people. And so understanding how to build your plate, understanding how much protein to actually put on there so that you feel good is really, really important. And then number 4 is fiber. This is such a big piece of the puzzle. And it's something that as our patients go into maintenance, it's something that we talk so much about because we often see fiber is really low, really low. Most of the diet diaries I look at, fiber is about half what it should be. For women, it should be 30 minimum. And I'd say I routinely see it like 10 to 15. Do you see that as well? Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. It's really common to see fiber quite low. And so, when it comes to fiber, it's not just about digestion. It does have a huge role in digestive health when it comes to bowel movement regularity. But it's also really important for our gut microbiome, super important for glucose regulation when we think about blood sugar. That has a really big role to play there as well. So that's something that we really encourage patients to get clear on, right? I think for every patient going into maintenance, have a conversation about fiber, about what high fiber foods are, give them a list. Let's hit these things, these amounts, right? It's such an important conversation that we have with our patients. And then the last one here is backloading caloric intake. And so it's exactly what Michelle was describing, right? It's especially on the weekends. It's, we're eating regularly during the day and then something happens in the evening, right? We go out to the restaurant or we order takeout and all the treats and all of the things. And it's that backloading. So it's having significant calories and especially really sugary, high carb dense foods the second half of the day. And that can be really tough on metabolism and cortisol regulation as well. It's healthy for cortisol to peak in the morning and then decline through the day. But if we are feeding our body inconsistently throughout the day, like fasting, as you mentioned, that can really affect those rhythms as well.
There's a couple of things I want to even add to this conversation because I think it's so important, and I like everything that you brought up. And I'll share some patient wins when we talk about the strategies that we, really help our patients with in maintenance because I think there's so many people that feel like this would be too hard or I'm too old to be able to implement new changes or I'm in my routine. And it's like absolutely not the case when you're ready to get healthy. But, like with those stats that you shared that are so incredibly daunting, some things to think about is, it's almost become radicalized to want to eat healthy, right? It's almost more trendy or more popular or definitely like feels like more belonging, especially, corporate lunches, family gatherings, right? We're bringing in a lot more processed foods, a lot more carbohydrate dense foods. And so to be the one who's choosing to either bring her own meal or prioritize protein, people tend to comment and it can make a lot of patients really uncomfortable. And sometimes we tend to self-sabotage because we don't want to seem different or stand out. Talking about how important safety is and like all these like very primal needs.
Okay, we get it. It is super confusing to figure out how you should be eating, and you've probably been hearing a lot more about increasing your protein consumption. We've got you covered. If you are looking to understand how much protein you might want to consider, then please go check out our calculator. It will help show you what this looks like for your ideal body weight, what that looks like per meal and throughout the day, on days that you're strength training and on days where you're just a normal gal about the town. If you are looking to understand protein a bit better and want to bring that conversation to your regulated healthcare professional, then please go check out our calculator online in the show notes so that you can have a more strategic approach to your nourishment and to your protein levels. Your future self and vibrant energy will thank you.
To belong is a primal need, and this is where this can be very confronting for many people. It was interesting. Recently, I sat on the couch. I was probably like 8 p.m. and I was eating a pear in front of my dad, and he was like, "Wow, you eat really healthy." And he was speaking to the whole day, but I was telling people after, I'm like, it was a pear, like food.
Yeah.
It's food, it's natural food. It's not that deep. But when everyone else around you is choosing ice cream or whatever, it seems radical. But like let's unpack that for a minute. Like let's really see this clearly. I mean, it is just food, right? So somehow eating healthy became a really almost like extreme thing. So and you look at the stats and it's hard to deny that this is a global problem that we're facing, and we really need to understand how we got here and how to help people peel that back. So These are patterns that we see so often in our patients and, have seen a lot of value in intervening differently or help coach differently. And I think this is where it really pays to understand that this is for us so much bigger or more important than the scale, like what you weigh on the scale. Why we really focus on safety and nervous system regulation is that much to what Tara was saying about eating patterns and when we're choosing to eat our biggest meal of the day and all of these pieces, protein distribution, is that uncertainty when your body doesn't know where or when or like your body, what it's going to be fueled by or how much. It creates a lot of distress in the body. We are still physiologically quite like archaic in our genetics. Our body is very, very simplistic and it needs a certain level of predictability to feel safe. And any variance from certainty is going to be interpreted by the body differently than maybe what you're cognitively interpreting. And this can be a big thing to unpack for patients, is that just because they seemingly intellectually are okay doesn't mean that their physical body is interpreting that information the same way. Your physical body requires, a certain level of safety to allow for normal hormonal orchestration. So for anyone out there who feels like their hormones are playing a role in their weight gain, this is really, really important, that you need to be honest of how the natural order of the body behaves. And any amount of certainty and consistency that we can create for our body is going to equal safety. And safety is when we start to really see the body make sense. I talk about this all the time when we're in master classes for our metabolic weight loss program, is when our body makes sense, when we do things on repeat, the capacity for your body to behave differently exponentially shifts. I, as a naturopathic doctor, was advocating for intermittent fasting. I was, without fully understanding that no studies had ever been done on women, and women should not be doing that in, pre-menopause, like in a hormonally primal time, like prime time of our life. And there were massive consequences to doing that to my body. And I felt mystified. And when I started to create simplicity and consistency, my body started behaving exactly as you would expect it to. And I think that's what's really important. And that's why I think we really, focus on this piece of our nervous system and our biology and how we have really designed a program to seek predictability so that our patients' bodies behave in a very predictable fashion. If you think about, how it used to be, if our resources were unpredictable, your body had to work super hard to survive, and it holds on and stores fat as protection. So I would say this to patients, like if your day, if you're being hijacked all day by emails and Instagram and availability or access and bad balance and bad boundaries with work and personal life. Like this week has been an interesting one for me, where I have work commitments, but we have end of school year commitments, right? We've had track and field. We've had late night soccer games because I have a teenager now, so they play really late at night. So last night was like yesterday was like a 14-hour day with very little breaks. So you have to think about those pieces when, like those are realities for us, but I'm not someone who allows that story to take over what I'm going to do to create safety for my body. But if you didn't understand those pieces, that unpredictability of having maybe a 6-hour day to a 14-hour day, your body goes, oh my gosh, we are not safe. I'm going to say Michelle as me. I love Michelle. So I'm going to store everything she eats as protection so that if and when famine is a coming, because it used to be a certain thing back in the day, I will be able to help her survive. It will be a protective, right? And since for most of us, don't have those circumstances, we feel very confused by our body's natural biological process to keep us safe. And so what we need to do is start to work with our natural physiology to create safety and predictability. So your body's like, we're good. We don't need to go to the cave. Famine is not a coming. It's it is very consistent. Therefore, it is safe to release. It is safe to utilize calories and energy because we don't have to worry about storing energy in the event that something dire is going to happen and we're going to need those stores, right? So we have to understand how we were, biologically designed and work with our biology instead of against it, because it's not going to work. It always catches up with us. When your caloric intake swings from 800 calories to 2,800 calories, that is a flexible, that is a variable spread that is not interpreted as flexible to your body. It's interpreted as unreliable, as inconsistent, and it responds accordingly. Because if the next day is a deficit, it already experienced a deficit, it's going to protect you in that surplus, right? So this is where this gets very confusing, and where when we eat the same consistent caloric intake every single day and follow a framework, your body doesn't have to worry about that, right? When patients ask me about, should I do a reset when I'm in burnout? This is where I'm like, imagine taking the load off of confusion from your body. Imagine redirecting that energy towards more functional parts of your day, right? So it can be really hard for our brain to reconcile why we would do something like this in a higher stress time, except for that when we start to work in harmony and in alignment with our physiology, we don't feel the same level of burnout and fatigue. So there's a lot of energy leaks that we tolerate for ourselves so that we justify, because we don't actually understand how the body was designed to perform. There's actually research that support this. Studies on caloric restriction and severe caloric variability show erratic eating patterns that activate our HPA axis, our hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, this stress axis orchestration, hormonal orchestration in the body. And what happens is when that gets activated, our body releases more cortisol in response to that being activated. So whether or not it is a tiger or it's variable eating, your body responds exactly the same. And I think that's what's really hard for people to understand, that this is as dramatic to the body as running away from the tiger, right? So we have the same physiological response. And I remember always saying this to my patients back in the day when I had a more quintessential naturopathic practice. I don't talk about it as much anymore, but your body doesn't have discernment of what stressor. There's no barometer of stress. So it's not like your body's like, oh, it's variable eating. That's a stressor of 25 versus a tiger. That's a stressor of 85. No. Stress is stress is stress is stress. If the body interprets stress, it releases cortisol. Its job is to release cortisol. So this is where this gets really confusing and dysfunctional, because I think cognitively we are, especially in North America, we are trained to be able to withhold a lot of pressure and push beyond what our body's capacity is, but our physiology never changes. It's interpreted as the same as being chased by the tiger. And so this is the confusion and the long-term harm that happens with not understanding how your body was designed to thrive. So elevated cortisol does a number of things that you don't want it to in the body. It makes it nearly impossible to lose weight. You get that central adiposity. Cortisol and insulin are, I always say besties. It's not medical, but you understand they work together. And so this is how insulin resistance also tends to rise with elevated stress levels, and the body's not as responsive to glucose stimulus as it was prior to stress, is that these systems in the body get taxed and our body no longer is behaving normally. It gets super confused in elevated levels of persistent variability or stress. This is, I think, something really important to take home, is that your body's not working against you. It's not trying to sabotage your results. It's literally responding to the information that you're giving it. It's actually a very loving response. It's doing exactly as it was designed to do, because it cares about your survival more than anything else. So when the information is inconsistent, the response is chaotic. And that is 100% of the time. So no one gets to skip this part. Some people could maybe prolong it longer than others, but we all are going to end up with the same ultimate consequence from long-term prolong. inconsistency or elevated levels of stress. When the information is consistent, the same calories, the same macros, the same thing, you could call this boring, but I, don't see it that way, but you could. The body settles. It's actually peace. It's actually safety. And your body actually gets to exhale and it starts to trust the environment it is in. And when a body trusts the environment it is in, it is able to shift. And that's the exciting thing, is that it really ultimately is about safety first every single time.
Yeah. And often too, I find when so many patients will come in and say, it's my hormones, right? Like my hormones are off.
Yeah.
And still, I always look at these pieces first, right? Like still looking at how are you eating? What is insulin doing? Because like you said, if that feels unsafe to the body, it is going to throw off your hormones. But often the root cause is insulin, right? It's the way that your body is actually responding to this lack of safety and inconsistency. And that's what we need to fix. And then hormones tend to fall into place. Not always, but I do find it such a big piece of the puzzle so often.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
Yeah. So what does this safe, consistent eating actually look like? Let's talk about the framework that we use in Shed, and we'll talk about it in a few different pillars. And so pillar 1, as Michelle mentioned, is consistent caloric intake every day. Every day. It's keeping it, and we say this all the time, we eat the same thing on repeat. We keep it simple. We meal prep all of the things. There's a lot of peace in simplicity. There's a lot of safety in simplicity.
Mm.
And that is, and I feel like I love when patients come back at their 1-month maintenance visit and they're like, yeah, I get it now. I get it now. It's prep my meats on the weekend and they're in the fridge or they're in the freezer and it's just simple, right? Like that's the biggest win. And that also like reduces so much of the mental load, right? We all have enough going on. And to think about what you're going to feed yourself constantly, that can be a big source of stress too. And so keep it simple. Keep it simple, keep it consistent. That's going to be so beneficial. And then we talked about carbs earlier. And having carbs and protein at about a 1-to-1 ratio is, for the average person, a pretty good strategy and can just help to keep things simple in your mind about how to actually build your plate and how to structure what you're putting into your body. So what that might look like is if you're shooting for, let's say, 150 grams of protein, then shooting for 150 grams of carbs as well. And this can help, as we said, carbs are not necessarily the enemy, right? We want carbs in your life. We want carbs in your diet, but we want to make sure that it's the carbs that have fiber attached. It's the carbs that are going to fuel your blood sugar, support regular blood sugar, satiety, all of those pieces, help with exercise recovery, all of that. And so having about a 1-to-1 ratio, that can help keep your blood sugar stable, preserve your muscle mass, really support your metabolism, and even manage cravings. I find this too. Protein can be a big piece for cravings.
Food chatter.
Yeah, healthy carbs as well. Big piece of the food chatter as well. I'm finding that more and more with patients. As we strategically increase carbs, it can really help with that.
Mm.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And then, as we talked about before, pillar 3 is even protein distribution across each meal, right? So what that looks like is about 30 grams of protein at every meal. Start to educate yourself on what that looks like, right? Ask Google, ask ChatGPT to show you what that looks like. And then try it out, right? Like and this is why we do the podcast. Like take what you're learning, apply it, see how you feel, right? But that's a game changer. Even for me, when I made that switch and I got clear, right, on what that actually looks like, I couldn't believe how good I felt. And sometimes, patients in office, they'll talk about like that mid-afternoon slump. And I was thinking about it, I can't remember the last time I actually felt like that.
I know.
Yeah, right? Like actually felt like I need to take a nap right now. And I did feel that way. I felt that way for a very long time. And yeah, I was just reflecting on that recently. I don't have that. I don't have that because I know how to fuel my body. I know how to prevent that. And so, protein's a big piece of that. Have your protein at lunch, have your fiber at lunch. That is going to keep your blood sugar stable. That crash, it's a blood sugar crash. That's why you feel that way. It's having a really high carbohydrate lunch, especially if you're grabbing something on the go. That's all carbohydrates, right? Pretty much everything that you're going to grab on the go is going to be very high carb and low protein and low fiber. So keep that in mind. And then pillar 4 is front load your calories, right? We talked about what that looks like if you're backloading your calories and you're eating all of the things every evening. And we could do a whole episode just on that and how that
100%.
disrupts your sleep and cortisol and all of the pieces. But the more that you can front load your day, and so that means what we see in the research is high calorie and high protein breakfast fuels you for the rest of the day. And I feel that difference. And our patients really feel that difference too.
Like, how many calories do you eat for breakfast?
Anywhere from 400 on the low end to 600.
Yeah. I'm around consistently 542 grams of protein every single day.
Yeah.
Because it transformed my life.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel hungry because of intermittent fasting for years. So I used to not eat until like 2 or 3.
Yep.
I can't even imagine now.
No,
I wake
I
up and
know.
I'm like, ooh,
Me
I
too.
can't wait to eat.
Yeah, I know. And then it's such a good feeling to
It
wake
is.
up hungry, eat the nourishing foods, and then be good till lunch. Like I used to be like, what should I have for lunch? I'm kind of hungry. Maybe I should have a snack right now. Oh, like it's that
100%.
like that's exhausting. I don't want to live that way. That's extremely exhausting to be thinking about food all the time. And that was actually the biggest shift for me with the meal prep, right? Like I didn't like having to think about food all the time. Like I'm a simplistic cook. I don't like, I like flavor. And so I make tzatziki and the dressings and like all that good stuff. But I don't like thinking about food all day. I got things to
your meals look pretty. You do a
yeah,
good
I
job.
love and they're simple, right? Like they're simple and I make like 5 of them and I just eat them
Me
every
too.
day, right? Like keep it simple. Keep it simple. Reserve that mental energy for the things that really require
Steve
your energy.
Jobs your meals.
Exactly.
Black uniform Monday through Friday. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. You need that brain power.
Yeah.
You really need that.
We've got really important things to do.
Yeah.
Deciding what to eat does not need to be one of the things.
Exactly.
This episode is brought to you by our Shed Metabolic Reset program. Look, I know there's a lot of programs out there and it can be very overwhelming, especially when it comes to weight loss and long-term fat loss and finding the right program for you. We have an incredible metabolic reset program, one that does thorough investigative work up front, looking at blood work metrics, helping educate you, a really solid, simple plan to follow in the reset phase, as well as long-term education around how to maintain your weight loss for the long term, how to optimize your health, how to increase metabolic flexibility, and how to build your plate so that you are nourished and the strongest version of yourself. Our program includes a lot of care and support with our integrative healthcare team. It is a medically supported program. We include community support, education support, as well as daily mindset calls. We are all about optimizing your health for the long term. This is the exact program that helped me shed 30 pounds and keep it off for 4 years and counting. So if you feel like a reset is something you would like to consider, a pause to help calibrate, come home to yourself, lower inflammation, boost your energy, learn how to confidently build your plate for longevity, then please head over to poppyclinic.com and you will see that there is a pop-up quiz that will get the process started of seeing if Shed Metabolic Reset program could be for you. If it is, we will connect and I cannot wait to support you in living the most aligned, harmonious life, one that reclaims peace and confidence in your body and teaches you how to eat for long-term health. I'll see you soon.
We're saving the world from metabolic disease. We can't be thinking about we're busy. And then the last pillar is fiber. And this is so we talk about tracking, and tracking is really important. And you don't have to track forever. Like, do what's good for you. But I'd say for me, I'll track for like a solid 2 weeks every couple months because my meals will change slightly, things change. And I just want to make sure, like for me, tracking is let me make sure I'm eating enough at this point, right? Like active muscle mass, like I need minimum 2,000 calories a day. And some days it's actually hard for me to hit that when it comes to whole foods, which is what I really prioritize in my diet. And one of the hardest things for me to hit if I'm not careful is fiber. It can be challenging to hit enough fiber. Like I even like recently had to make tweaks to my meals, like adding chickpeas in with my lunch, and you get to be creative and it makes a big difference when it comes to your digestion. So 30 grams of fiber minimum per day, really important. This is the target that we give our patients. Sometimes we even increase from there. So important. It's so important and there's so many really good fiber-rich foods. As we said, it's not just from a digestion perspective, but it's gut health, right? It's cholesterol. Yeah. Like so many important pieces come from the fiber.
I had a patient come in this week and has chronically struggled with sluggish bowels and bloating. And, we've worked really hard at building back her plate. We really focused on fiber as her last piece of homework. She came in, she's eating 44 grams of protein a day, bloating gone, regular bowel movements, feeling so much better. Like it's just, and this woman is approaching 60. So like, what I think is really cool about that is like there's a lot of people out there who think it's going to be too difficult. It's not. It's a decision. You're a decision away from deciding you want to take this seriously, and you can like I don't know, take laxatives for the rest of your life. Not that we're recommending that in the least bit. Or you could like figure out how to feed yourself for proper bowel health. And I just like celebrated the heck out of her. Like that was like outstanding to see.
Totally.
And she was beaming. She was so proud of herself, but mostly because she feels so good. And that at the root of something she struggled with her whole life is so much better, right? Like it's not rocket science. Like we just need to do the things. And she's being super consistent. And I even challenged her on something. Like I was like, oh, maybe you missed it. She was like, oh, no. Go look at that again. I did not. Like she was like, and that's what I love. I love a confident woman that's like, you missed this. And I really love that. She had it figured out. Like, I think it's really, really, it's so exciting to see. And when patients understand, they feel empowered too. They don't feel vigilant. They don't feel afraid. They're like, which is, for 1 month follow-up visits are becoming my new favorite thing to watch patients like beam with excitement when they're like, I can trust myself. Like, I get this. Like, yeah, of course you do. Like, you did the things to get yourself here. Like you did that. You can repeat this. Right. So it's really, And like 2026 is superfood is fiber. So, we're talking about it. Your phone is hearing you. You're going to get fed all kinds of recipes in your algorithm. So, just put some attention there. But we chronically eat really low fiber. And there's a lot of patients with chronic constipation and poor bowel health and a lot of bloating. And, there are some considerations with fiber, but it doesn't have to be difficult. Like to your point, like checking in every once in a while and building foods in that actually increase that over a day, make it a lot easier to hit those numbers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also not relying on, I'm seeing this more and more, people like because fiber is so buzzy, same thing with protein. Protein and fiber so buzzy. Fiber especially lately, but now they're adding fiber to kind of like everything, right? So it's like fiber candy.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Like protein chips. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Still whole foods, right? Like one of the ways that like, the standard American diet is like, oh, that's trendy. I'm going to make it candy. I'm going to make it chips. And it's like, okay, that can be part of a healthy diet in moderation, but eat your vegetables. Eat your vegetables, not just the chips. Just with the fiber conversation too, and how it can transform people's digestive health. Like, as we've talked so much about, it's just bringing it back to the basics. Often we want this like super complex plan because often it feels better if the answer is complex, right? But usually it's simple. Usually we're just not having enough water. We're not regulating our blood sugar. Like, it can be simple, and
Yeah.
sometimes it really is just that simple.
Well, that you're bringing up that whole terminal uniqueness thing, right? We want a complicated answer because then it means we don't have to take radical responsibility.
Yeah,
And that's
it's so
triggering for some
true.
of us. It's very activating, right? That it's like, oh, hydration.
Yep.
It was, oh man, like I could have done that a decade ago. So we get it. Like we say this jovially with our patients, but it's true. You're right.
Yep.
Like sometimes we really wish the answer could be more complex because then we remain a mystery and we remain disempowered and then we don't have to take radical responsibility. But it really can be quite simple. And I mean, 17 years into clinical practice, I've had better results with our simple approach than I ever had making complex
Mhm.
treatment plans for my patients for like a decade before doing shed, right?
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you, like we are very, very simplistic beings. And I mean that in the most complimentary way, that very
Mhm.
simple solutions provide a huge return on investment. Like it's not complicated, right? And the
Absolutely.
thing I really want to like bring to the conversation as we, near closing this out is, you can't hit a target you don't see. If you know my story at all, I was a naturopathic doctor for like 13 years, 12 or 13 years at the time. I was in the height of my burnout and gained 30 pounds and was intermittent fasting and skipping meals and burnt out and drinking smoothies because I didn't want to take time for a lunch break. Really bad boundaries. And I felt genuinely confused. And within the first week of our reset program, I was like, yeah, I know
Mm.
exactly what happened here. And thankfully, I had done enough mindset work at that point that I was willing to take the radical responsibility to own my part in creating the dis-ease that I was experiencing in my body and, put one foot in front of the other day by day by just taking radical responsibility. Simple steps, but taking radical responsibility. If I wanted different results, I needed to do things differently. And it first came down to actually understanding what the heck I was putting in my body. We weren't taught this in school to the level I think that we should have been taught this to be able to properly guide our patients. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And the variability in my diet was massive, as was my energy. And I can tell you for the last 5 years, my calories is continually increased as I build muscle. Like certainly there are changes to my plan, but usually it's increasing calories because I'm well muscled at 45. But other than that, like my target proteins, what I eat throughout the day, my distribution, my consistency, that has all been the reason why I've been able to maintain those results since figuring that out. Right. So the first step is to really, it's always awareness, right? Like let's look at what we're actually dealing with here. And what I like about our platforms, and AI is getting really good. I've gotten some really good feedback from our AI platform recently at just how good it is at interpreting proper portion sizes and stuff. This stuff just keeps getting better and better. And so for a lot of my patients, I turn off all of the tracking originally so that they're not censoring what they're eating. Like just take a picture of every morsel that goes in your mouth. And then you're able to actually show them what this variability is because it is eye-opening, right? And once you have that, it really does start to click. And then you can start to build a plan around how you would like to feel. Would you like more consistent energy? Would you like to not crash at 3 p.m.? Would you like to have enough mental clarity to get through your day, to have the bandwidth to set the healthy boundaries? Would you like to be able to fall asleep at an appropriate time? Like all of these pieces are really important when we understand. And, as much as we need to take radical responsibility, it also is the opportunity to stop blaming ourselves and thinking that we aren't like that there's something inherently wrong with us. There's nothing inherently wrong with you. I think that's what I love about what we're doing in our program is that we are reproducing this results in every body type, in genders, in age variances. Like it's producing the same results, which means that when we understand, we can reproduce these results at any time. Right. And I think that's a really empowering and encouraging thing to share. Yeah. So when the confusion lifts, that's where the real work begins, right? Is like, how do I actually want to do this? And, working with someone to build you a plan, can be very helpful for understanding. Like our InBody is really helpful because we customize a lot of these pieces based on your actual muscle mass, based on your actual targets and goals. But then, like Tara was saying, like there's AI, there's so many ways in which you can create very, very easy systems in a world that, keeps us very busy. So I think the assessment piece is the very first step to feeling like less mystified and more hopeful.
Absolutely. Well, we hope that you learned a lot today. We hope that some of this landed for you and you can see how you can take some of the things that we've talked about today and really apply them to your life, because that's our goal with this, right? Is to share our clinical insights, because we have a really large data pool that we can pull from. And I think that gives us a really interesting perspective on a lot of these conversations. So we love getting to share all of this with you. And if you're curious about Shed, if you want to learn more, you can check out the description in the show notes. And if you have questions, you can always reach out to us. And until next time, stay wild.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Wild Medicine. I am so grateful to have you here, and I hope you're feeling inspired and empowered. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star rating. It helps us reach more incredible women just like you. And before you go, quick reminder, the information shared on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat any medical condition. Please consult with your healthcare provider for personalized advice and care. And if you're ready to take inspired action and dive deeper into your own health journey, please visit us at poppyclinic.com. Let's rewild and reset your health together.